Hello, and welcome to another episode of Doctor Who in Review. This is Nisha M., your geek mom, hosting with the amazing Louis Lacow from Men Bites Media. And today's guest is going to be the Schlocky Schlock himself from the Narcotic Casserole, John Reed Adams, and Joe from Diversely Geek. Hello, everybody!
Hey, guys!
Hello!
So...
And Jody's always the quiet one.
She's like, yeah. Hey,
the Daria wave.
Oh my gosh. So much for us to discuss today. Louis, you want to tell everyone a little bit about how you feel, or everybody you want me to just go right into my... Yeah.
The first thing I thought of, oh my God, I never want to pop bubble wrap again in my life. That's
in your life.
Oh, the bubble wrap.
Oh God.
So they took a point of comfort for us, literally. A point of comfort and stress relief, literally, that is universal. And they said, we are going to make that a horrible thing. I was like, how dare you? I'm offended. No.
It's like they now have us torn, but our desire to destroy this little benign popping thing and our desire for self-preservation. Now we're torn. We have no idea what to do now.
I think Graham's face explained it all. He's like, but I want to pop it. And his face just gave it away so well. He's like, but I want to pop.
Okay, so now that I had you guys go straight in, I'm going to actually step back and say, hey guys, this is us reviewing this week's episode of Doctor Who, and that was Kerblam. So, I had a lot of things said out in social media, and I didn't pay too much attention because I don't like to before the show, but everyone was going, oh, this is a retrospective on Amazon, this is about this and that, and I'm like, I'm not... I did not actually see this show as anything related to what we saw on social media. I felt that it was definitely a really innovative, but at the same time, a really wonderful throwback, flashback type of story and storyline and filming and action. So,
I think people are finding something to complain about. And that is still continuing. I think they're literally stretching to find anything to complain about in Doctor Who. And I was like, what? I saw the same thing. I saw everybody talking about, oh my God, it's a critique on Amazon. It's a critique on Amazon. I'm like, no, it's not. It's a critique on anybody that's by bringing down workers. And this is just corporate generation. This is the corporate generation. This is literally every corporation out there that does this to their people. There's very little corporations, even the big ones like, say, Google, say, Amazon, all these guys, they do the same, they have the same model. They follow the same structure, and they do the same things. I mean, yes, they're going to oppress their workers because they're going to get the best potential out of them. Now, there's also cases of abuse, and this episode, I think, does a great job of tapping into what happens when you abuse your workforce to the style of Metropolis, to the style of all these things where the great oppressor of the middle class and lower classes uprise and what happens from that uprising. And I think, this is that classic science fiction theme of what happens when you do that.
So you know how you always reference on our other show that we do, Isaac Asimov?
Yes.
I was like, y'all, this has him all over it. And I was like, I robot. I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Hey, John, what do you think? It just was like your immediate reaction.
Well, first off, the thing that delighted me to no end, because I'm a sucker for mysteries, murder mysteries and the like, and immediately when I got the ebb and flow that this was going to be a mystery, I was immediately on board, because I'm always a big fan of a big puzzle, and the fact that the whole episode was like that. And like any good mystery, you don't just give us one red herring and one obvious suspect. This one actually had a whole slew of suspects, each one with their own motive. I mean, even to the point where we're suspecting the robots, we're suspecting the CEO, we're suspecting the human resources. And the funny thing enough, the one person I wasn't suspecting was the
people resources. Sorry.
So, storytelling level, I thought it just hit all the right marks. And also, with all the complaints that was going around, specifically of how the companions weren't really getting equal share in the episodes, like, and I can see where they're coming from, because, I mean, let's face it, for as great as Demons of the Punjab was, Ryan did kind of take a back seat, and Graham, with the exception of a couple good scenes, didn't really get much in his own right. I mean, and that's fine. Yaz deserved to have her own episode, really. But this episode in particular, I loved because this was a Team TARDIS episode.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of my favorite things about this whole season has been Team TARDIS, and the fact that they're trying to live up to that concept. If anything else, I this is my first time on the show, so I've been able to tell this, but the thing I've been digging is in a way they're kind of trying to do what they attempted to do during the Davison era, because one of the major problems with the Davison era was the TARDIS is always crowded, and unfortunately you jammed it with a bunch of companions who either A, don't want to be there, or are so unlikable that you don't care. Yep. So this feels like they fixed it, and a lot of it's still working for them because they have such a great cross-section of characters here. And this episode, I think they shined. All the characters shined in this episode.
I think what people don't realize... Well, no, 100%. And what people don't realize is that this is like any other structure of a story. Mind you, Doctor Who has a special case because these companions, these actors, these actresses are not part of the previous season. So they have nothing to build on. What do? They follow the usual structure of building the characters. What do? Each episode concentrates on one character. Once they accomplish that, then they go into a Team TARDIS episode, which is what we saw today. This is the Team TARDIS episode that we finally saw. But if we hadn't flushed out all the characters in each of the episodes, we wouldn't have been able to appreciate the fun of this episode.
Right, and I actually completely agree with what you're saying. So, you're looking at Chibnall having to be able to, whether you agree with him or not, I'm still on the line in certain things that come to Chibnall, although I am leaning towards the positive for sure. I am 100% leaning towards positive with this cast. Brilliance is not even a word. But in every episode, each character, with the exception of Yaz, who's been a very slow build to get where she is, we have seen them fleshed out. We have, because they've been the immediate cross-sectional characters that we're introduced to, which is Ryan and Graham and Grace and that family dynamic, which then Yaz becomes part of, and then Yaz's family. So, by the time we reach this episode, or Demons of Punjab, we have to flesh out the parts of Yaz's life, which would then make her being part of Team TARDIS that much more relevant, poignant, and necessary. And so I feel like up until this moment, we had been building those pieces of the puzzle of this team. But in this episode, this is teamwork. And Lewis, did I not say that to you before you guys actually watched it?
Yeah, 100%.
That is exactly what I said. I said, and guys, dare I may say, teamwork. And they were like, huh? And you got it. What do you, so I'm going to go back to a point that I made when we were talking earlier. What do you think about, and this is a big point, the message that the Doctor receives? And as always, listeners, spoilers. So what do you think about the concept? Two things. What do you think about the intuitive nature of these systems? And their ability to be able to reach out to the Doctor to save for the system to save its life, technically.
I think, like everything, you have to have certain rules and boundaries put in place, and those, because it's an artificial system, it's something that needs to be inputted by us. It doesn't have a moral code that's inputted immediately, so those rules need to be inputted into the system. And like Asmanoff and all that stuff, the first thing that he set upon was the principles of artificial intelligence, which those are the main rules that cannot be broken, which has been the basis for science fiction since the 60s, since he wrote these books. He's made that, like everybody's made that a point for the artificial intelligence to have these special rules because they need to qualify.
So how do you, I mean, and John, you can chime in, and Joe, what do you think about this system, again, being, having the wherewithal to be able to reach out to the doctor and to send the package?
Sorry about that. I had actually cut out. My Wi-Fi is not being that great, but
no, it's okay.
Yeah.
What do you think about the system? Because we call it the system, right? Kerblam system, operating systems, in intuitive nature to actually reach out to the doctor and to send the package. Which, by the way, that package, what she received, come on.
Yeah.
What did you think about that?
In Kerblam's defense, I mean, they were trying to track the TARDIS through time and space, the doctors doesn't exactly live in a straight line, and obviously Kerblam doesn't exactly send their packages through the vortex. So
I got a little fuzzy feeling about that. I got a little sprite about that one. Oh, but go ahead, John.
I saw it as just like a plot device. I mean, I admit if I never see another Fez again, it'll be too soon, just because it's like, oh, okay, we get it. People love Matt Smith. Let's move on. I mean, honestly, I would have been more impressed if it was a scarf.
Yeah. If it was a what?
If it was a scarf.
Oh, yeah, that would have been pretty cool.
Or celery. Just lots of celery.
I love that idea.
Talked about that. There's like a little snippet that if you go through iTunes to buy the episodes, you have like a little inside clip that they actually give you today, and they were actually talking about what they were going to put in the box, and it was between three things. It was between the Fez, the scarf, or the celery stick.
Oh, okay. Jeez.
So they actually debated this already. And they went with the Fez because it was the most relatable thing, because they considered it modern Who, so they wanted to, kind of link it with the modern doctors. They've been doing a lot of classic references already, and they're like, all right, let's give something to the newer fans. No,
that was very refreshing. And to be fair, I think that this, the plot devices and the action styling is very much relatable to 11. All the doctors, don't get me wrong, but this was a very relatable episode that you could easily have just taken any regeneration of the doctor and put them in this situation.
Well, yeah, I could have seen any of them doing something like this. So, oh no, you definitely got that right. This one actually reminded me more of the old RTD days. I mean, like I said, one of my favorite episodes of
very much
and the Wasp.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
which was referenced.
Exactly. Oh no, and I think it's a knowing nod to the fact that they're doing a mystery episode. I'm like, yeah, bring up the other great mystery episode that no one thinks is great.
Oh, it was so good. It's so cheesy.
I love
good.
it. Like I said, I'm a sucker for murder mysteries, and yeah, that's what.
Oh my God, this was so pure perfect. So I was totally thinking, like iRobot, that I was thinking Clue the entire time.
Yeah, right.
I was like, oh, this would make a great episode of Clue. Oh.
But all right, so now I have a little gripe to pick with the episode, and this is the only thing that I really had a problem with. How the hell did that messenger bot or that delivery bot get into the TARDIS?
That was my exact question. You literally
Dr. let it in.
Did it?
Did it? Did she?
Yeah. The doctor let it in. Once she realized what it was, she let it in.
Oh, okay. I didn't catch that. At least I don't know. I
At the very beginning.
I just rewatched the episode with Glenn, so.
Oh, okay.
So I was actually wondering, and you kind of
Glenn, so we
you kind of mentioned this, John, real quick. How did the messenger know how to find the doctor at this particular moment in time?
Seeing as it was the doctor who placed the order initially, it probably gave it tracking protocols for whenever it entered the galactic, that particular time of space. The only problem is it was never equipped to travel through time, so it was only equipped to home in on the TARDIS in this particular time period in this neck of the universe.
And that's why because once again, trying to stop.
I think the TARDIS is just trying to stop her getting it because it's like, no, we're done with fezzes.
It's like bad fashion choice.
Please help me. Though I mean, the doctor was trying to. Joe's chiming in. Ooh. No, I was just thinking the doctor was just trying to keep it from coming in because she thought it was something like dangerous because the TARDIS was picking up that it was something like. And then when she was like, "Oh, wait, that's what it is," it just kind of like materialized. It looked like it was like a deep particles. It just kind of like decided to show up, and it was like transported Star Trek style. Particle materialization. It was very much Star Trek style. I was like, "Oh, this is so retro." I loved it. I even loved the lighting of this film. So let's
actually, it's funny you're talking about retro because actually retro can play a lot in this episode.
Yes, it did.
There you go. Thank you. So I was going to see what were your like your fave? What were your fave? I mean, you're the perfect person. That's why I'm going to highlight this, John, because you totally classic Who so well. So much retro and flashback going on here. So I mean, you guys did, we've been talking about it. At least we talked about the Fez, of course, and then we talked about the styling being very RTD. Was there anything else that you felt from the story, the mystery, that was like really that we could connect to as a classic Who fan? Or
as far as the retro goes, I mean, honestly, the thing I liked about it is, there was an episode in the Sixth Doctor era called Mark of the Rondi, which took place actually during the Industrial Revolution, when people were worried about losing their jobs to technology. And really, when you think about where we are right now, a lot of people are worried about that because there are a lot of jobs being dissolved right now because of technological advancements. And people are legitimately terrified about that. So if there's any kind of connection to the classic series, I'd say that would be the episode I'd connect it to, because the Industrial Revolution was a big thing back when it happened, because everyone was freaking out, like going, "Oh, the machines are taking our jobs," kind of thing. And I like the fact that this episode actually addressed that notion nowadays, because unfortunately, of course, there's always the fear that movie theaters are going to close because everyone's going to be crazy on streaming media. Of course, Blockbuster closed down because of streaming media, which is sacrilege in my book.
That was a little bit more to play with the fact that they weren't playing competitively in the market, and they weren't meeting the market needs. Honestly, they had the stale they had a stale program, and they didn't want to go into.
Ooh, okay, that's another conversation, my friend. That's another conversation.
That's a whole other thing right there. But that was the central theme I liked. I also liked the fact that the main villain, as it's revealed, I don't know if we're getting into spoilers here, but I liked how the big reveal of the villain, it all turned out because he was disenchanted that the corporation's throwing him a bone with just 10%, but it's like going, that's not good enough. More people are still out there with jobless because you'd prefer automation over this, when clearly that's not a reliable system. And the other thing the other thing I really dug about that was the idea that he's doing this out of a state of emotion. He's not doing this like some elaborate Mission Impossible thing, like he had a plan, like some evil master plan. No, he's doing it just because he's lashing out emotionally, which I thought was really kind of cool.
I mean, what is it? This is a single, extremely genius, brilliant individual who had so much technological awareness and knowledge that how did he get through the system, the people system, to be able to act out and this mastermind, planned. So
one could probably surmise that in a society such as this, that's very technologically minded, he was probably one of the ones that of this generation that were schooled in technology, so he probably could do well. But the problem is he's probably surrounded by loads of people who weren't so lucky. And odds are that probably might have been some of his family, might have been friends.
His parents.
Yeah, in all likelihood. And pretty much when he's looking around, seeing all of them just struggling by, probably doing like very menial jobs, probably doing sign twirling. And he probably just couldn't handle that. And he probably used all of his gifts to try and infiltrate the company.
I think that we get a little bit of that inkling because they very, very wisely and I think empathetically give us some insight into what the culture of the population would be at the time with the other main characters, who I really very much liked. And of course, all I could think to myself is every week, Lewis and Joe and I say, and Richard, what happens to the characters that we like? What has been a running theme? They die. So, what is this about killing all these running characters that we love? Well,
yeah, you're talking about poor Kira. Poor Kira.
I was not very happy with that. I was like, no, why was that necessary?
Because
actually, I can tell you why. Yeah,
it's a main plot device.
Well,
I agree, but you guys tell me why you think, because with this many episodes into this season, at this point, it is truly a running theme. If you had to find a theme that was that was a continuum, this is actually one. So tell me what you think about it in this episode.
I would say that honestly, when I did my review of it, I just put up my review. I actually associated it very, very heavily with the original ending of Little Shop of Horrors, which, for those unfamiliar, the original vastly superior ending, the one to which should only be watched. Basically, because of Seymour's stupidity, Audrey winds up getting duped into being eaten by the plant and dies. Basically after being tricked by Audrey too, and Seymour, in his vain attempt to fight back, ends up getting eaten his own self. And this, to me, was an echo of that, where the system, knowing what Charlie was doing, spoiler, what Charlie was doing, ended up fighting back. And pretty much the only way how, like the doctor said, the system knew what you were up to, knew why you were doing it, and the only way it could make you feel or try to, it was in a way there was the system bargaining with it to know what exactly would happen if you let this pass. If you let this pass, millions of people are going to, die, and you're going to have a bunch of broken homes full of people feeling the way you're feeling right now.
Yeah.
It was a hint to the idea that the system itself, being sentient, is also actually has some semblance of, actually, funny enough, has more humanity than Charlie had in the end.
Yeah, which is very interesting concept, because that goes into how dehumanized has humanity become because of technology, which is a very fascinating concept. And it shows you that I think is one of the most powerful messages of this episode, because let's face it, guys, this is our reality now.
It is a possibility. There's a statement that's made in the beginning of the episode, imperfect technology without a conscience. So I challenge that statement, because as one of the very first things I said in tonight's review is the intuitiveness of the operating system to reach out to the doctor and act empathetically and in self-preservation.
Yeah.
So do you believe that statement we heard imperfect technology without a conscience. I believe that the system is telling us that is directly proving that statement to be wrong.
It's an AI system, so it has a consciousness.
Yeah.
There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
Not conscious.
I'm sorry.
There's consciousness. This is conscience.
Conscience. Sorry. It is conscience. It does have a conscience if it's a AI and it does exist. I mean, this is an artificial intelligence that has developed to the point where it's running the company basically. This has emotional attachments because this company is its baby. This plant, it's its baby. It runs everything. Every single person, every single machine in that plant, it's its babies. It's its family. And yeah, of course it's going to have emotional attachment to it. And the humans that help him or her serve this greater cause. I mean, that's how it's a symbiotic relationship, just like we have with machines.
Yeah, actually, it's that's kind of what I was going to say. It's kind of a good springboard off that. It is fascinating to the notion that that this machine had a better grasp of the necessity of human life, better than people like Charlie did. Where in the sense that this thing actually wanted to devote itself to protecting it wasn't just customers; it was about people. He was trying that the machine set out to summon the doctor to try to protect its clientele, which consisted of millions of people who could have died. So
exactly. You got it. That's where my mind was going with this.
And it leads me to always wonder about the idea. It actually kind of reminds me of Ian Malcolm's little aside in Jurassic Park, where he commented about how, God kills dinosaurs, God creates man creates dinosaurs. Well, in a way, this is, technology itself is our dinosaurs. It's the idea that, inevitably what happens when technology becomes so advanced and so evolved that inevitably it replaces us. I think what matters is that we try to teach it about the sanctity of life, that it appreciates it. Clearly, that's what happened.
That would be the Terminator.
Yeah. Well, that would be specifically the T-800. Skynet didn't learn jack. But but this machine that was running Kerblam obviously understood, because it knew that it is nothing without its clientele. It's nothing without life. And actually, it's punctuated beautifully in Kira's monologue that she had, where she's talking about why she actually loves her job, because she knows that every single one of these packages that she's packaging and sending out with the help of the machine is a
joy.
Yeah.
A moment
something that's going to make someone happy. Yeah.
Oops, can't hear you there, Joe. What did you say?
Yeah, like she said, it was, a little package of happiness, box of happiness, I think.
Yeah.
And I know that we're on a train of thought, but that's are we gonna point out the continuation of falling in love with characters, and then
we just talked about it a moment ago. I'm so sorry. We're going to go back to it because we didn't. I said that there's two things, because John really brought up a great point, which was the reason why I let out this episode tonight with what I said about intuitiveness and you brought it up as sentience. And there's one moment where they're having a moment of angst, and the supervisor says, do you need to take a moment of personal mindfulness, a mindful moment? And I thought about this, and I'm like, so now it's not just intuitive. It's fully empathetic, and that actually was also compassionate. So, sentience, but to a point, to almost to a fault. So it's mind blowing to me.
I gotta give Shipnall something that he's answered all the qualms that the fans have had, and I think he's kind of silenced the people that have had issues with the previous episodes. Perfect example, the boss, the head honcho of this particular facility. He was made out as a villain, like there was in the previous episode. He was like this person that had no soul, whatever. They made him out to be like that, and then he's like, no. I was trying to help. Look at what I was doing, and you're like, oh my god, I can't believe it.
And he puts it in analog because he isn't sure he can trust the system. So and the interesting point,
it was like, for all we knew, it was the system that was doing this, but he couldn't be sure. So,
but he couldn't be sure, so he couldn't reach out to the system.
Yeah,
crazy.
Actually, it goes back to what I was saying. How actually it was a lot of times going retro actually helped save the day, was because Slade actually took it upon himself to just make hard copies of everything, keep things on paper, keep things written off the network. The doctor was able to obtain the information she needed in order to solve the mystery. So
what I funny? Go ahead.
It was just
go ahead, Joe.
It was just. Oh, sorry, Joe.
Oh no, I mean, it was just that I just find it funny, just processing what you're saying, and it's like we kind of watch these episodes and we feel like, oh, well, as we go on, we feel like certain qualms that we have are addressed, but it's like these are written and shot so long ago.
Yep.
So it's not like they're, I mean, of course they're going to look at the feedback and definitely take that into account for the next episodes. But it's like, it's not like they can change what's already done most times. So it's pretty awesome to see that it might actually be progressing the way that he wanted it to, and want us to have certain things that we felt kind of here or there about, and then progressively like ease into it.
Yeah.
It's intentional. I'll leave it like that.
Yeah.
I mean, for myself, this one definitely felt like one of the more well-balanced episodes of the season. I'm noticing like some of the episodes that really shined this season are the ones, not to throw stones at Chibnall, but I think it's the ones where he let the writers themselves off the leash a bit more. I mean, this is actually a first-time writer for the series, Pete McTighe, or Tiggy, or however you pronounce his last name. I think Ty.
Yeah, I think it's something like,
Yeah, and you feel like they have a much stronger grasp on story structure a bit more. I just don't think Chibnall would have written this and it would have been as smooth as it turned out to be. I mean, I'd say I've been enjoying the season thoroughly, but I'd say my one niggle is the one thing I even remember when we did the big discussion a couple months ago.
Yes.
My one worry about the season was the fact that I know Chibnall is great with character, not so hot on plotting. And that's where, but fortunately the characters he's created are so good that I can forgive that. That's kind of how I've been feeling.
We're not going to see that overarching story like we saw with Moffat and Russell. We're just not going to see it. It's been apparent since episode 3. We're not going to see it. We might see a tie-in with something in the last 2 episodes, like going to like the Matt Smith first and second season, that it was like literally the first 2 episodes had the silence, and then the last 2 episodes had the wrap up of the silence. And then you had little sprinkles of it and hints of it throughout the season, which, I mean, technically Moffat, he was good at coming up with these plots, but we haven't seen Chibnall's wrap up of the season. So
that is true.
Moffat always wraps up at the end.
He might be playing some kind of big long con that we just don't know about. This is basically based on my knowledge of him with Broadchurch when I watched the first season, and
I agree with you.
Yeah, I was a bit let down by the ending of that first season. I was like, oh, that wasn't the finale wasn't as good as the rest of it was. So I'm still
I agree with you on that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm hoping against hope that, well, actually, if anything else, if there's any kind of arc I would like to see some resolution on this season is just where the characters are at the end of it. I'd like to think that all the development of the characters from the beginning of the season to now, I'd like to see them end up in a really nice spot. Like, frankly, what I'm waiting for that fist bump.
Yep.
And you know what fist bump I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah.
I am waiting for Ryan to finally fist bump Graham.
It's going to happen.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's going to happen.
Waiting for that.
He's like, no.
and then meanwhile you got Yaz, and clearly her torn between her eagerness to be extraordinary, but also with her love for her very normal family.
Yeah.
It's like you get the vibe that she doesn't really know what she is, what kind of person she is, and what she really wants out of life. Obviously, she became a police officer to be extraordinary, but that's obviously not doing what she wants.
I mean, she has an ordinary but yet atypical family, culturally speaking. So they've already completely turned the box around when it comes to that particular cultural perspective. I do feel that she knows she's extraordinary. Mm-hmm. And I have to say that they're building that with her relationship with Ryan. And her relationship with Ryan as a brother and sister, it's pretty impeccable. I actually have gotten to a point where I'm seeing them as twins. If that's the weirdest thing to say, but I mean, like a weird, but really, do you see where I'm coming from?
Oh, I'm so happy you put it like that. I'm so happy you put it like that, because honestly, that's the vibe I'm getting from them is that it's not even remotely going to be a romantic thing. It's just strictly these two are basically brother and sister. Like you see these two as the friends from school that they used to be, and that's where they're leaving it, and that's kind of amazing. And I'm happy that they're skewing that cliche, because let's face it, we're tired.
It's kind of sad that we have to feel like that's something that's amazing, that there can be two characters that don't get into a romantic relationship, because unfortunately that's been so much of what we've had recently.
I mean, shipping drives me up the wall when they do. I don't mind it when they do it with two characters who you sense might have some kind of attraction, but it drives me crazy when they do it with characters who you can blatantly tell are not meant to be. And for example, like Missy and the Doctor, I think I loved Missy had a great line in Magician's Apprentice where she said, try to take your mind out of the gutter for a second and actually focus on the possibility that two people can connect on a level that has absolutely nothing to do with your loins.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, oh my God. And I believe that is so well overlay. It's a very strong overlay throughout this every single. Okay, so bearing in mind that we don't have any overarching stories, we have established in today's discussion that there are at least one or two.
Yeah,
and we brought them up ourselves.
There's
one
character arcs, but not story arcs.
No.
And then there's general themes of like the grief and them working through finding.
There you go.
It's all about them finding themselves. Yaz is at the beginning. You see, she's a policeman, and she's trying to figure out what she wants to move up, but she's struggling, and her family is. I mean, it's great. They're great, but she wants more. And then Ryan has, all of his abandonment and his issues in terms of identity. And then, Graham has had everything about his life in Grace, and that was taken away. And then the Doctor is just regenerated. So at the end of the day, I see it as these four people that have come together and are finding themselves and learning to see life in a completely new way. And that's what that's what their connection is together. And I love that we see I love that there's continuation in everything.
Yeah.
There's a continuation in every single episode. The Doctor compliments Ryan and tells him he is either smart boy, like good boy, brilliant, or like she's always telling him that he is extremely smart about something. Yep. Simple, very simple that he says. Graham obviously has a connection with Ryan, and they always have at least a playful banter moment or like some sort of heart-to-heart connection that gets kind of played off in a heartwarming comedic way. Like I love that I love that Graham was so comedic this episode, actually.
Yeah.
Graham had some amazing moments this episode. Oh, I think my favorite thing was how he got stuck with the janitor job. And you think that
I love it.
And you think that he was going to get benched in this episode, because of course, like I said, there's been episodes that have done that to companions. But I love the fact that he actually turned out to have the most vital position, because that's the one where we actually got to know the culprit. So that I thought was absolutely wonderful.
I love Graham. He is my favorite out of the new companions. I just love him.
I won't lie, he's probably one of my new favorite companions now. Right next to Donna and Bill, he is probably easily one of my new faves. But that being said, though, I am loving this. I'll say it again, I love this team dynamic. I like.
Yeah, that's what I was going for. That's what Tricky was, I think, was definitely bringing up to us.
I'm sorry, John, say that one more time. Your call was breaking out.
Oh, sorry. I was loving how we had the family dynamic with the Ponds, but now we're actually having, I guess you could say, a support group. That's kind of what this is. Team TARDIS. This is kind of a support group, because all of them are coping with something, and that's what I was kind of getting at. Yeah, that we're getting here, and it's working so well for me. And even when an episode.
Oh, we lost you again.
Oh, sorry, cut out a bit again. This is there we go. It's a roller coaster this episode.
Piggybacking off of that, what I was. I think you're still going in and out. So I mean, if you don't mind, I'll just kind of piggyback off of that to just say, like, I completely follow that with that. The team dynamic is for me, it works so well because they're just 4 people that are finding their identities, that came together and have found their identities through being together, and I think that that's something beautiful that is only can be done beautifully when it's written by someone who actually understands how to write people, and I mean write people like real life people, not carbon cut like cutouts of people that we just put onto paper and aren't actually complex and follow like the cliches. I mean, of course, there's some cliches that are people, but like say the romance, I didn't even think of it as something that would have been put into the season because of the level of writing that Chibnall's at and the other writers have been at. But the direction of the storyline isn't something that we've seen in recent with having to have a romance. And I think that that's something that is honestly, in my opinion, it's very weak storytelling to have to throw in a romance into your story for there to be complexity.
Yeah.
It's unnecessary completely.
They try to build up the drama from a romance. Exactly. Which this season hasn't needed that at all.
Exactly. I find that like point of emotional gutting that we're getting is from falling in love with these characters and then losing them. And I think that we're actually supposed to feel like that because in a way we're feeling and seeing that these companions and the doctor are still going through grief. They're grieving because the doctor's still grieving Bill and Clara, Missy, and Missy and the Ponds and everyone. But honestly, all the specific recent losses, and then obviously Ryan and Graham, and I mean, Yaz we saw a little bit of the grief that she kind of experiences in the last episode, but hers more so is. That's why I think we've seen her a little bit differently than the other 3 because we're seeing her without that level of grief, but we're seeing her connection still, her empathy still. And I think immediately we're finding that these companions are not just likable by us, but they're just likable people. Everyone that they encounter just loves them.
I think Yaz is actually going through grief in a different way. I think Yaz is actually approaching grief because she's not able to fulfill what she wants to fulfill. She's not who she wants to be. She's still trying to find her actual voice. Yeah. And that's what her grief is, because she doesn't feel like she's living up to the potential that her grandma put in on her plate. That's what that episode was about. And trying to meet those expectations of being this exceptional woman that is able to control everything and everyone. And I think she's trying to come to grips with that and how to face that in a modern society, and trying to beat that like sensibility of these men trying to take control of her life. Because let's be honest, that happens on a regular basis, especially in the field that she's in.
It does, and in an interesting point of view, she has a very strong and confident mother, which is very unusual that the mother and the father have reversed roles. Mm-hmm. So that's a conversation I think we should actually put into
reversed roles, but I think mean like in the cliche form.
In the cliche form, that would be very correct. I'm sure Joe and I would probably love to discuss that with you more. I think we're going to have to do a complete separate episode specific to this topic, because this is a fabulous topic. I really want to discuss more. I want to say that what we have been seeing from to this point with the storytelling is an establishment and an establishing the identity of the characters, not to us. Although we are parties and very self-identity, and it's about their self-identity. We are watching them find their identity. So they're not doing it for us as the viewers. They're doing it because it's happening as part of their journey, and we just happen to be party to see it. And I'm enamored with that particular concept. And one of the key moments that I feel was a great example of that was the pairing of the characters with the secondary characters in Kerblam. That the Doctor and Ryan are with Kira, and that Yaz is with Dan. We can't forget Dan. What an essential character. Then the robot supervisor who was with them.
Yep.
And then we have Graham with Charlie. And I want to explore as one of our, more our closing points. Tell me, like, why did you see that? What did you see about that pairing? What did you feel? And when you really put this in perspective, every single pairing, the other person died. Is gone. So tell me your perspectives on that. Think about that. So Lewis, what do you think? I know, big one.
I think, honestly, it's essential because each of the episodes, again, they've been singled out. Each character has been having their own single episode where they get flushed out. This is the first time we get each individual character part of the team. And having them all go through a grief process is just fitting, because that's what all the previous episodes have been about. It's Graham losing a person, or it's their story, Graham's story losing somebody, Ryan's story losing somebody, Yaz's story losing somebody. So now it's all of them put together, so all of them are going to go through a grieving process, and it's just fitting that all of them lose somebody, because that's just the pattern that Chibnall's put down.
There you go. See, there is a story arc. It's just you see what I'm saying? You see where I'm going? Okay, John, what do you think?
Well, what I meant was, there's character arcs. Character arcs and story arcs are two completely different things. Character arcs, yes, we're seeing the characters evolve throughout the season, and clearly that's what Chibnall's more focused on, which actually I'm happy about. What I mean by story arcs is in, like, there's no crack in the wall, there's no bad wolf, there's no river song, there's no what's in vault type thing. That's
we don't know yet. We still don't know yet.
There, but I'm not saying it's a bad thing. We still don't know yet. I'm going to reserve those judgments for the finale, or even for all we know, the New Year's special. So, because for all we know, that might actually be the bona fide finale.
Well, I think what I'm pointing out is that there's a running theme. I think I've said it. It's not a story arc. And yes, we do see the character arcs, and it's an establishing self-identity, and unfortunately through grief and loss, and the grief and loss and grief and loss and grief and loss. But
yeah,
I think that they're experiencing grief on a constant basis in every episode. The loss that they're having to face, like not just of people, but it's of situations and it's hopes or personal beliefs and things that they keep having to get faced with. But I was really curious, and maybe Joe, what do you think? Why Kira with the Doctor and Ryan? Why Dan with Yaz? And I think we can figure out Charlie and Graham. I can see where that really was a beautiful marriage right there. So what do you think Kira lent to Ryan and the Doctor, and then Dan lent to Yaz? Did we lose you, Joe? Anyone want to think about that?
No, I was just thinking, because earlier when I was talking about like how they're all finding their points of connection to each other for their self-identity, I had just been thinking about how you can even see that how they relate to everyone that they meet. They relate to them based in like their own identities. Sorry, I was thinking. I actually had my train of thought had kept going from earlier, like how Yaz feels connected to Dan because family, and I mean I think he's kind of similar to her dad in a way, like his comedic his comedy, and then Ryan obviously relates to Kira in terms of himself and his how he was back home, and Graham. Graham is great. Graham just takes in everyone. He's such a fatherly figure to everyone. That's really wonderful to see that that these are all like very open. These paintings are very, very open and heartwarming, and I think that they reflect the Doctor very well. Like I feel like they're all influences on each other, and it's really, really wonderful, honestly, to see that. And I think you see it more in this episode. You see more of their influence, like their influences on each other and how they work together. So it was really, I mean, jumping back, to what kind of John said, it was like it's really great to see kind of a team episode of them kind of working all together.
And I kind of felt like that's exactly. I kind of felt like this was a really beautiful episode for us to see them as characters confront their own identity and their own personal self-value and how hard they are on themselves. And that includes the Doctor too, because we're let out with episode 1 with Ryan having no belief in who he is and thinking, wow, this is all I am, is this packing dude, but this is where I want to be. And in this episode, that's brought full circle that he's a master at this.
And you see the confidence in him.
And you see his confidence. And Kira's like, oh, wow, man, you're amazing. This is unbelievable. Look at how good you are. And he's like, well, I guess I am. And then he knew the inner workings of this entire thing. And he could lead them where they needed to be because he had this experience. Don't you guys? I mean, for me, I was like, whoa, full circle character here. From I don't believe in myself, I am less than everyone else, to being like, wow, I'm pretty damn good.
I think we're seeing the character growth really gradually, but also not. Like it's I like that we're getting the little tidbits here and there. Like they are traveling between what we're not seeing, and
I'm sorry, Jody. You sound very muffled.
Joe, we're losing you, honey. Yeah.
Oh, I was just okay. I don't know if this is better or not, but it's good to see like that. We're hearing that the characters are experiencing a lot, not just what we're seeing, but things in between, episodes, and that in all of this time, they are growing. They actually are growing as people, as themselves in their identity, and then as a team and as a family. Like I feel like Graham is this, like, I know you mentioned earlier, but like a father figure for Ryan and, well, the team. I mean, for Yaz, honestly. But if you notice, like, even, I mean, Graham and Ryan end up teaming up, and then Yaz and the Doctor do as well. And I think it's really, and they can all kind of rotate in terms of working with each other, just because of how well they're really starting to mesh and work together. And I think that's something that this episode kind of like really gave us insight into. Okay, this team is very, like, well meshed together at this point.
100%, I agree. I have one point that I wanted to ask everybody about and see what their opinion is on this matter, because I think that this is another poignant question that's being brought up in this episode. What do you think about basically what this man is, that he's a terrorist, and how they kind of tackle the issue of a homegrown terrorist, say like Anonymous, say like what do you call it, the whole movement that's been basically bringing down these corporations in the guise of saying for the people. What do you think of that, guys? And what do you think how do you think that plays with this episode?
Touchy subject. But isn't it interesting how we made this point earlier, that what is Chibnall, or, like, are these people clairvoyant? Kind of airy.
I definitely agree with her. It's kind of freaky, the notion of the homegrown terrorism. I mean, the thing about, but as I think I mentioned this earlier, that I think it all comes down to motivation. Like, what is it about him that made him want to do this to begin with? And you can tell it may even be less politically motivated and more personally motivated. Like, he got like, him and probably people close to him were so profoundly affected by automation and by the technological boom that he thought that the only thing he could do was some grand, horrible gesture to bring down a company. And he's so clouded by his emotions that he never stopped to ponder the possibility that he might actually be the bigger monster here. And, well, on Doctor Who villain standards, that's actually very rare that we ever get that. And
what do you think that plays with modern concepts of, say, like this group of Anonymous that basically have been portrayed as, say, like a Robin Hood type, that they're stealing from the rich, so who cares?
I wouldn't.
Vigilantism? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, like, I wouldn't even compare it at all. In my opinion, it's completely, I mean, I feel like it's very different, vastly different. And it's really, in a way, it is hard to apply it to real life. And I mean, for me, at least in my opinion, and I mean, most domestic, terrorists are, I mean, the way that it is real is that they are like this. They do have the mentality of, like, oh, I'm going to be making things better. But it's really just a radical idea that is from, personal experience. And it's, those, the terrorists never, domestic or otherwise, never stop to think of what the actual effect is that their terror will have, because in that mentality, it's a greater good. And I mean, that definitely applies in terms of, like, to our situation in real life, and I think that's more so what they were drawing from. I wouldn't say I would compare it to, like, a really much of a larger organization or movement or whatever you'd call them, group.
Well, I was identifying it as a terrorist group, which that's what they are technically, because they do acts of terror against the population. So, I mean, yes, it's not an explosion in everybody's face, but it is an act of terror that tears people's lives apart by crippling people financially. So it is an impact on a person, and it's a group that have basically no conscience towards a person on the other side, which is what I'm getting at.
It's about the thinking of not thinking of the terror. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I'd say, I mean, I guess for me, terror, because of the society we live in, is more violence related, because more so what we see in terms of people taking radical ideas ends up leading to violence, which is why I'm relating it in terms of I guess the deaths that we see in the episode.
What's
in this
more
particular
violent?
Case,
death or basically death of a person financially, which leaves a person completely ruined for the rest of their lives and suffering for the rest of their lives.
One is murder. And they're not comparable. And that's not really something that can be debated because murder is murder.
Yes.
Exactly. And we don't want to, that's not a slippery slope that we want to go down. Although it's a good point.
Because we also live in a time where terrorism is active and where people are affected and have most of the world and our community knows people that have died from domestic terrorism, so it's not comparable in my opinion.
Actually, may I offer an alternate point of view?
Yes.
Actually, it actually leads me to wonder. I'm going to use another example of murder because of poverty. Bruce Wayne's parents. They were murdered by a man who was a derelict, who was impoverished and could think of nothing more than getting whatever he could in order to eat. What's there saying that this guy wasn't doing it for any kind of real political cause, other than the fact that he's desperate and a lot of other people are desperate, and he's doing what he thinks is just what other people wish they could do? That this is more just out of an act of desperation for the fact that they can't do anything else. I mean, it all leads. I mean, because it's always been said that a rise in poverty usually leads to a uptick in the crime rates, because of the fact that they fall back on crime because they have no other option. It leads you to wonder, maybe this is more about a guy just doing it because he sees literally no other option.
I agree.
So let's have a wider bird's eye view of this. I think that we're all I'm listening. I listened to all of you, and all three of you, they actually gave three different perspectives, completely different perspectives on the point of view. So believe it or not, if you think back on it, and that's perfect, because that's what we're supposed to do. We're all individuals and we have individual thinking, but not one of you approved of the end justifying the means. And
no.
Okay, so in the long run,
talking about something doesn't mean that we justify it in any way.
Yeah, no,
right. Conversation of that way we have this conversation and people realize, because this is on the back of a lot of people's minds, is this a bad thing? And
right, so that's what I was going to discuss. Yeah, it's absolutely a bad thing. It's never going to be okay, because murder is murder is murder. But what I was thinking as I was watching it, and I'm watching him stand there, you do understand Charlie had the ability to walk away from that and to survive.
Yes.
They gave him that opportunity. They begged him to take that opportunity because they didn't judge him in that moment. They just said, look, we get what you did. We understand it. It's not right. We don't approve of it. But Charlie, save yourself, because there are other ways for your brain and your brilliance to make something happen in this world. And he just stood there and anticipated that death and allowed himself to be engulfed in the flames, because he'd already been engulfed in the flames. When he stood at that window and watched Kira die, and they realized that he knew she was going to die. And we knew as the audience that he had the ability to open, because he had the technological awareness to open that door and let her out. But he did not. Okay? Think.
I don't think he
on
did.
the place that he...
No, actually, he didn't.
So the reason I say this is because the system brought Kira into there in order, thinking that he would go and save her, because that he would stop and he would reveal what he had done, and that he loved her so much that he would reveal his evil plot in order to save her, which is not what happened. So I'm surmising that somehow the system had thought that Charlie had some way to get in there and save her. That was just a thought I had in my head.
Actually, it's kind of another funny pop culture metaphor I can associate with this. The ending of Dr. Horrible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This is basically when Penny dies, and in the end, all he has is just being Dr. Horrible.
Yes. Only this is technically the reverse. It's not the reverse, but yes, it's the same. Okay, so it's the same outcome in a sense. The loss is the loss. And when I watched him accepting the death engulfing him, I thought about something. I was like, wow, we're not talking about Kerblam being the only automated system in the entire of that universe. We're talking about Kerblam probably being one of the largest automated systems in the universe, having to follow the mandatory 10% organics. But for humanity to have been relegated to a 10% and to a state of impoverishment, and the point that John made where Charlie is probably one of the few who was educated to the ability to be a cyber technologist and beyond in 3 levels of education. And then you look at the simpleness of Kira and Dan as juxtaposed to Charlie, and the happiness to which she works this gentle job, and Dan doing it for his family. I thought in that moment, it flashed in my head, my God, so Kerblam could possibly have not been the greatest of all automated systems. What and how much worse could the rest of the world of existence be for these people that Charlie was so pushed and felt so motivated to affect millions of human deaths in order to get his message across. To save humanity from automation, he was ready to effect mass murder on humanity. How bad could it be? How bad could it be that that's what he was willing to do? That is what I was thinking.
And I think that's where maybe we might have that overarching story that we've been talking about that we might not see into the last 2 episodes. Because if you notice, the despair of the universe has been a crucial point in all the episodes that have been in outer space.
That is true.
I thought that was just part of Chibnall, giving us something to relate to in real life, in real times. And I thought it was a very, particular move, even in this episode, to kind of, go the way he did. And I thought that it was good. It was done particularly. I do think that, bringing it back a little bit earlier, it's this is an individual, and in terms of relating it to real life, I wouldn't relate it to real life in kind of what John was saying. It's like, this is, kind of bringing it to like the fiction of, okay, well, like Batman, this is how like the guy that killed the parents did things. And the thing is, any terrorist that has anyone that has a radical form of thought from something it's a radical side. So yes, he is fighting for something and takes it to an extreme, where the extreme is that everything is justified because he thinks he's doing what's right in his head, and that brings it back to anyone that's a terrorist in any form. And I don't see it as, oh well. I mean I get that the whole point of discussions is always to look into like the psyche and understand, well, why did a person do what they did, what pushed them to do this. But at the end of the day,
well, it's very simple. It's very simple to see what pushed them over the edge. I mean, we've seen it since the beginning of time where a group have been oppressed, subdued, or completely like ignored. The most recent example is the civil rights movement. Yes, Martin Luther King was a crucial part of that, but if it wasn't for the Black Panther movement putting that in everybody's doorstep, then we wouldn't have seen that movement not take shape, but go as fast as we would have seen it go into. So I never condone any type of violence because that's horrible. And any type of violence where especially it's killing somebody or doing any type of criminal activity, I'm completely against that. But also we have to acknowledge that this is where people's mind goes to.
Yeah, it's where people's minds go to. It's where people's minds go to when they're led the wrong way. And I think that too often, the reason I'm saying I can't find it in a way, like, there's a line in obviously fiction and real life. And I think that comparing it to anything in real life isn't good, because there is a difference, but I wouldn't compare this to a group, because at the end of the day, this was a singular person who's more comparable to the singular person domestic terrorist that we have, more so to any group. I wouldn't compare it that way.
Yes. Okay, that's a discussion for another day, guys. I mean, really, they're pushing the envelope here. They're bringing us to where we need to be.
Like, I'm not going to throw out a name out there, like say the Black Panther movement. I mean, the other thing is we're taught the history that we're taught. There's plenty of things that people don't know that were great about them, and then there's plenty of things that that were radicalized in media so that there were negative perceptions. Correct. So it's like I'm not going to compare this to anything in real life because it's fiction. But
so I'll go relatable. Right. So I'll go back to the point that I actually made. The reason why I even wanted to discuss this, and Louis brought it up, is, and he did get it. It was about the despair in the universe. I was looking and hoping that we would actually see that there is a low tide, but an undercurrent of despair in the universe, that this one individual made this choice. But it's going to happen. And it's not like the first time throughout the history of Doctor Who that we've had these types of acts of violence, because it happens. It is part of what will happen in the science fiction and fantasy world. We see acts of violence. And at no point is the end going to justify the means. At no point is the means going to justify the means, ever. So we, as DG, Mighty Knights Media, Narcotic Casserole, none of us have any inclination to, or intention to say that we even would, in our discussions, would ever approve of anything like that.
No, absolutely
not. I'm more so like getting at the point of like, so because what was kind of raised was like, well, how do we feel about him being quote unquote, I guess, a human activist? That's basically the only thing personally I can find that comparable to is the people who start to rise up and in a form of radical movement to act in a way for for the betterment of a community, but just on their own thought process of, well, this is really for, it's really for them, but it's not actually for the betterment. Because if he was, if it's really human, if humans are really at the forefront here, why are you killing humans left and right? That's where I'm like, it really, to me, it's like, it was just, he was not at all really fighting for anything but himself at the end of the day,
100%.
because
And
he
that's
was
what terrorism
fighting for a
falls into.
personal agenda.
That's what terrorism
Yeah.
falls into. It is a personal agenda. It is a very selfish act because they're not putting into consideration anything. And I think that's what this episode touches upon nicely and neatly.
What moment of desperation,
nicely and
that
neatly,
you'd be willing to literally sacrifice 4 million lives?
Yeah.
I just couldn't even, I'm like, what? And it's done so subtly and so quietly.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, the engulfing of himself in those flames is his admission of guilt. But there's so much more to discuss in terms of this. If we were really to go into the psyche of this, I think it would be we'd be opening up a Pandora's box.
Oh yeah.
And that's the beauty of Doctor Who, though, and why I think we're all agreeing that this season is actually pretty awesome. I mean, there's so much to discuss, so much that's brought up, so much that triggers our emotional wealth and our empathetic thinking, and patriotism or nationalism or whatever you want to call it. It triggers so much inside of us. But
yeah, I think that's why I'm like, it was a very, the way that it was done, I think, in a way that wasn't super triggering for anyone, because it wasn't like, it wasn't in the time that we're living in. It's,
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. It's extremely sad and disparaging that this is so relevant, but it is. And it's just because of that mentality of, oh, well, me thinking for myself to make things better becomes a radical form of movement where mass murder is considered normal. That's why it's like, yeah, it's going to be a little bit touchy when we go into it. The other thing is, obviously, this is more of a issue in the United States than it would be in the UK or around the world. Of course, I mean, there is still that mentality out there, but in terms of the actual, I mean, I know that the world is going through a lot right now, and I think that's why they chose to do this episode in the way that they did, to kind of put it in this corporate area, like this corporate setting, and give us insight into these characters and their lives, and then rip them away from us so that we again feel grief. But it was well balanced, so that it wasn't like, it didn't leave us with a bad taste in our mouth, and didn't leave us thinking, okay, this was like too heavy or too much. It was written well, to go back to what you guys started with, to say that. I know, I think it was John.
Full circle.
To bring in the crazy, to bring in the writers that are out of the box.
The sad truth is, we got so much discussion regarding so many complex themes regarding domestic terrorism and the like. And the wacky part is, and the sad part that kind of makes me sad, is that do you think a lot of other people are going to get what we got out of it?
No. That's what the great thing about having a discussion with so many different people about this topic, because we're putting 4 different minds together, and we're having this discussion every week. Because look at all the topics that we tackle every week. It's something new. It's something like completely out of the box, and that's what we're trying to go for here.
That's exactly the point. I think that's the beauty of this particular show, I think.
I mean, we got a good 30 minutes out of a gawkish Thomas Middleditch style villain, And
did we not?
So many, how can we not? And that is the joy of what Doctor Who is actually capable of, and that most people take for granted. So,
so John, this is your first time in the show with us.
Yes.
First, and this my last point I'm going to make in a moment. I'm going to come back full circle to the beginning of our episode and ask you guys one last question. But John, so far, Narcotic Casserole, tell us a little bit about how you feel how you feel this particular show is doing and being able to, like, how you've been part of this conversation. Is it it's how do you feel? Like, it's a little more controversial, or we're touching subjects that are more outside the box, as Lewis said? Or
honestly, we're doing exactly what was always intended to do with Doctor Who, even to the days of Verity Lambert, when she insisted that the Daleks were a metaphor for Nazism. Now, we are pretty much doing exactly what is in spirit of Doctor Who, and not just Doctor Who, but of science fiction in general. The whole point of it being utilizing fantastical themes as a metaphor for current world issues, and today's episode has tackled a lot of aspects of it, and a lot of it relating to, and I think for me the biggest thing I love is what people do in the wake of the new industrial revolution, about technology ultimately overtaking jobs and ultimately leaving people impoverished to the point where they do something so desperate and to the point where it clouds their judgment and even their conscience. And in the end, that's what I took away from Kerblam. I mean, and like good Doctor Who, you can enjoy something on strictly an entertainment level, and this one is a wonderful mystery, like I said before. But in the end, but as you lovely listeners at home have now just experienced, we got loads more out of it, and that's majorly important. And this kind of goes out to all those naysayers who keep saying, like, stop putting politics in my Doctor Who. Doctor Who is not political. I beg your pardon. Yes, it is.
Yep.
I actually just recently reposted an article pretty much listing out every single story that had a political slant. Even one episode I can't stand, Delta and the Bannermen, actually... it's an awful story.
It's a pretty bad story.
But yet, nevertheless, it still tackled interracial relationships. That's the funny part, and that's what good Doctor Who's always been.
Yeah, and for the entire New Who generation, in the very first opening hour moments, I would say half hour of our reboot New Who, we are literally brought into moments of political warfare. So, isn't that what Christopher Eccleston brought? But isn't that what he faced in his episode? So, guys, I'm not sure what show everyone else is watching, but to be honest with you, for John and I, who have been watching for how many years, these conversations we're having on our show, we could have throughout the history of Doctor Who.
Guys.
All right.
Lewis, who's catching up.
We need to follow in the footsteps of Michael Uslan when he got Harvard to do an accredited course on comics. We need to submit to Harvard an accredited course on the subtext of Doctor Who. Right there.
Oh, I can do it. I'm all ready for it. If you guys are ready to write it, let's do it. Completely ready. Because the four of our minds are so vastly different, but yet so similar. Isn't that the craziest thing? So I'm going to go full force, full around now.
All right.
The social media conversations told us and touted this to be an episode about Amazon and slamming Amazon. Hey guys, tell me, did you even think?
No.
I mean, at what point in this episode do you think that they were slamming Amazon, referencing Amazon, or anything else like it? I mean, let's be serious.
Into it thinking, and I was like, I don't see it anywhere. That's my only thought on it. And ridiculous.
Wait, what? It's about Amazon?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it was only like the very beginning when they referenced like oh yeah, blame ourselves. We were busy like watching our phones, and while technology took over our jobs. And I'm like, yeah, literally the only reference you can pull is that like Amazon is just one of the bigger companies right now that is starting to replace human labor with machinery labor more often, like more so than, I mean, but like literally that's a lot of places.
No, that's been happening in the automotive industry now for so long insidiously that we have literally lost up to and don't quote me on it, I'm probably wrong, 40-something% of the human workload has gone to automation. And that is why the industry, why so many people have lost jobs. So if I was going to point out an actual point of reference that's historical with data collected on it, I'd say it's the automotive industry. I would not reference Amazon. It's just that in our mindset, and because we are a very fast-paced, social media-oriented generation of folks out here, I believe that's what they were referencing. But hey, that's just my thought. So, yep, a little throwback again. So again, to all of the review pundits out there who chose to go that route with their reviews, I'm wondering what episode did they watch?
Yeah, no, nothing. So yeah, let's wrap up. We're actually way past time. Yep. Actually, we had so much to talk about.
It was your fault, Louis.
I know.
You opened the can of worms. Oh my God.
No. Let's not go assigning blame. Let's you know who you should blame? Blame Pete McTighe, because he had to write an episode which we thought was supposed to be filler, turned out to be such a wonderful episode full of allegory.
Oh yeah, no. Hey, I'm going to totally agree with you. Total disclaimer, my friends, this was a topic on my list of points for today, so it's not like I'm not. I'm quite aware.
Oh, no. This was not your fault.
Yeah. No, I love it. I absolutely love it. I am so grateful that we have guests who are willing to open up and really be able to put their emotions and their thoughts and their brilliance into our conversations. Yeah. So wrap up time, definitely. Louis, you want to go ahead? Louis and Joe?
Sure. What do you call it? John, thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, like always, check out anything on Narcotic Casserole. You'll be able to link it in the show notes. Will be a direct link to his YouTube channel. But you could also check it out on manbitesfilm.com. That has a link also to Diversely Geek, which obviously is part of Joe and Nisha's partnership with Man Bites Media. And every week we review this show. And also we have another weekly podcast that reviews time and space and relativity. Yes, I finally said it right. All right.
You got it!
I'm not going to lie. I had to look at my phone.
Hey, John, be prepared. Be prepared for your guest spot. Be prepared because it is a revelation. That show, when we do that show, it's a revelation. You'll learn things about yourself you never knew.
Yes, it is. We'll be able to
someone
post.
Needs to learn something about me.
You'll be able to see those episodes on Diversely Geek's stream of podcasts, which will be located anywhere where podcasts are available. Same thing as Man Bites Media. You'll be able to check out both of them by the time this episode drops.
And don't forget, Diversely Geek discusses and My Geek Universe personal retrospectives on how our geek and fandom passions have transformed our lives. Those are awesome, and we have some amazing guests coming up on all of our shows, right, Louis?
Yes, we do.
Oh, man, it's super exciting, like from now till January. I can't wait. So, and Joe, want to tell everyone a little bit about Diversely Geek? You can send us an offer. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry.
I don't know.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're fine. You can find Diversely Geek on any social media platform just by looking up Diversely Geek. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, the works.
And you can find us on YouTube as well. Check out our Diversely Geek Discusses series and make sure to tune in for our continual weekly podcast.
And stay tuned for our original written content, which will be featured every week on our website. So we cannot wait because we have some amazing guest writers coming up. And hey, Lewis and John, you're totally welcome to submit amazing original content articles for that as well.
All right.
Awesome. So again, hit that subscribe button at the bottom, hit those notifications to be able to get every single weekly podcast, because we don't just have one episode a week. We have multiple discussions that go in depth, just like this episode did, and not just talks about the movies, but talks about the philosophies behind it. So thank you guys for listening in, and we'll see you guys next week for another episode of Doctor Who in Review.